Welcome back to another edition of the Irrationality of Atheism and Naturalism. In part 1, I dealt with the irrationality, I should say, of holding to an atheistic or naturalistic model of life origins. I contrasted what is theorized in some cases versus what is actually observed. I'll give you an example again of a theory. The evolutionary theory proposes that through slow, gradual changes over thousands, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands of years, a species can change physically, at the even the DNA level, the genetic level, into becoming entirely different species. Now, I said no one has ever observed this. We have no record of anyone ever seeing this, and nothing in the fossil record of any transition of fossils, but all the fossils that are collected are seen to be their own distinct types and own distinct kinds. What do we observe, and what has everyone observed that is recorded? Life production. Just as what we see now, we all see life being produced from its own kind and reproducing according to its own kind. That's all we see. That is completely and utterly all that we see. And we've ever only seen that. Now, the fact of that matter that life is produced from its own kind, pre-existing people, for example, produced me. My parents produced me. If I choose to mate, I would produce a child according to my own kind. A human offspring would be born. And the same with you. You came from your parents. And if you reproduce, you reproduce the human being. And it's the same with all the other living creatures of the earth. That's all that we observe. So this process is happening in a self-perpetuating closed cycle. Life came from its own kind and reproduces according to its own kind. Now, the problem is, since life being produced is dependent on the existence of life pre-existing it in its own kind, this is what we observe, then since that is happening in a cycle, as we observe, no naturalistic model accounts as is for how first life came about. Because naturally, what we detect, what we see, what we observe through our senses is that it's happening in a cycle. And we, as far as we can see, no life comes without pre-existent life. So, the only way to explain this, a naturalist would have to say that the laws of nature were different at the time life began in order to account for first life to start the cycle. Now here's the problem for naturalists. Most of their theories, a lot of their theories, including how they calculate the age of the earth with calculating decay rates and all that stuff, decay rates of isotopes and the age of minerals and rocks and all that stuff, depends on a principle called, I believe it's called Uniformitarianism, which states that the laws of nature were the same in history, the same in the past, the far past, as what we observe on the earth today, is what we observe presently. So they say, well, if isotopes are decaying at this rate, then they were doing so millions of years ago the same way. That's just one example. So by this, they're able to stabilize themselves a foundation to calculate the age of rocks, the age of the earth, etc., etc. But if you no longer have that uniformity, if one of the laws of nature was different, in order for first life to come about without pre-existent life of its kind, without pre-existent life, then no one can say with surety that the other laws of nature were the same. And now that foundational principle that holds together such calculations as the age of the earth and all that, it falls apart. And now what was relatively a stable theory, after starting certain question marks. Now the other alternative to cutting down uniformity by saying that one of the laws of nature was different to produce first life, only alternative is to say that a supernatural life created the life and the cycle of life of the living creatures of the earth, and he set those things in motion to self-perpetuate as we observe presently. And so now you have to move out of the atheistic column into the supernaturalistic or the theistic column. So either way, whether they say that there's a naturalistic model, the laws of nature were different, so first life can come about and so destroy uniformity, and now it's a question mark about whether the other laws of nature were the same in the past, here on the earth, and by extension otherwise, and so make all their calculations unstable, all the calculations that their theories hang on, or they give up being atheistic and have to become theistic. It's a double-edged sword. But what we actually observe dictates that. But now here is where part 2 actually begins. Besides human beings, and all the other living earth creatures, we see a similar process in plants and trees. Where did the tree come from? Seeds. Where did the seeds come from? Trees. Where did those trees come from? Seeds. Where did those seeds come from? Trees. The same thing is what we see with the earth creatures. Where did they come from? Parents. Where did the parents come from? Their parents. Where did the babies come from? Adults. Those adults were babies who came from adults who were babies who came from adults. Now, and there's another problem. Answering that old saying or question, which came first, the chicken or the egg? The naturalistic models cannot account for this. And all that we observe tells us that one depends on the other. All the mature forms came from an infancy, and all the infancies find their roots in mature forms. Yeah, explain. If you try to say, well, the egg was first, the seed was first, the baby was first, if by some chance you can get away with saying, well, maybe seed fell Where did the seed come from? But okay, you say the seed fell into the dirt. Enough dirt, wind blew covering on the seed. Happened to rain, got exposed to light, and it grew up. Even if you get away with that, now try that with a baby human or other animals, cubs, or other infant animals. Well, no one to feed it, no one to change it, wash it, no one to protect it, to dress it, keep it from the wear and tear of the elements. The baby would have died. The cubs would have died. It never made it to a mature form to reproduce. Well, on the other hand, if you say the mature form was first, the adult form was first, the chicken was first, the tree was first. You don't observe that. You don't see that happening. Where did it spawn from? Adult human just popped up, or adult lion, adult chicken just popped up suddenly. Adult whale just popped up. Tree just popped up without seed. Didn't go through the stages, just spawned as is. Then why reproduce? Why doesn't everything just spawn in its adult form? What is the purpose of reproducing? If things just spawn. But it doesn't match what we see. We see life. In a cycle. Mature to infant, to mature to infant, to mature to infant. And also life coming from its own kind and reproducing, quote, often cycles, self-perpetuating cycles, interdependent cycles. Only way to account for a break in the chain or the spawning of a mature form is creation outside the natural model. That's straight to the irrationality of atheism and naturalism is very irrational.